front of the scene, but since we are not a state institution, but I remind everybody, 3 civil society organizations, so probably our protocol is and should be a little bit more informal. Now we came to the end of, I think everybody agrees, a really successful endeavor. But it is not to the organizers to evaluate, because obviously we would be very subjective. We wanted someone else who will be, I hope, more critical and have a fresh look at how they saw this forum. And these are 2 relatively young, not the youngest, 2 relatively young participants who were part of the pre-event of the forum. Jana Bačević from Belgrade, a researcher in a number of topics which are in fact very close to something what we understand today as a comprehensive security. And I personally hope that these are some of those topics that we will address next year. Among other things, conflict resolution, education, etc. And Sigrid Neuber, do I pronounce it right? I hope so, from Washington, a security policy analyst in the field of foreign policy of United States, especially regarding European Union and the Middle East. I invite the 2 of you to give your evaluation of the conference.
Thank you very much for having invited me here, and it has been a great pleasure to listen to many insightful speakers over the past couple of days. I can say with certainty that I think all of us have learned a great deal from our panels, and I think that our last panel here was particularly insightful. That panel also captured some of the differences that exist in this region. My role is to try to capture what unites Serbia, what unites the region with the EU, and my colleague here will give a contrasting perspective afterwards. Perhaps the most apparent lesson that I have come away from this conference is the great amount of solidarity given to the region. We have seen statement after statement expressing a great desire to see not only a peaceful resolution towards the conflicting parties, but also an emphasis that the future lies within the Euro-Atlantic community. And I think as a testimony to that desire, President Tadic yesterday made a series of remarkable remarks in which he particularly emphasized the interconnectivity of a whole range of issues, ranging from the financial crisis to fighting organized crime and terrorism. Those were only on the surface. Subsequently to his remarks, I think another level of support for the region came from the ministers that were following in the panel afterwards. We saw foreign ministers from Bulgaria, from Hungary, among others, emphasizing goodwill gestures being carried out. And I was impressed the fact that Bulgaria and Serbia recently carried out joint exercises. I thought that was a good goodwill gesture towards moving in a positive direction in terms of normalizing ties between NATO and Serbia. On a separate note, I also think that the Russian theater that we experienced yesterday, good or bad, illustrates also that possibly that Moscow is losing its influence in the region, which again solidifies the positive direction that the Euro-Atlantic community and Serbia are moving in. And on a final note, I want to say a very big thank you to Sonia Licht for putting this event together. And also on a personal note, it turns out that one of Sonia's long-term colleagues is one of my neighbors in Washington. So perhaps this also illustrates how much attention and how many things in common we, after all, do have. So thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have been given the daunting task of figuring out what is it that sets us apart. And there are a number of things I could choose to bring up, such as, for instance, the legacy of conflicts that have profoundly defined the political map of the region, the ethnic divisions that continue to define the political dynamics in the region, or the ever-changing and interesting relationships with a number of external factors, including the European Union, US, Russia, NATO, Turkey, etc., that will probably, or rather very definitely, define the political future of the region. All of these are important topics, and all these topics have been discussed at length in forums, but also in hallways during coffee breaks, etc. This is why I will not focus on any of them. Instead, I chose to focus on something that I saw as a sort of common defining characteristic of the talks I had the opportunity to witness during this forum, and that's insecurity. And when I say insecurity, I do not mean in the usual sense, or rather in the more common sense, of the perceived threats to national or human security. I mean in a more profound, more generic term, which is the lack of clarity on what the future brings. Now, when it comes to the distant future, I think that during this forum we could see a relatively strong consensus on European Union membership as the preferred distant future scenario for most of the regional countries. But when it comes to a more proximate future, so what are the exact steps on how to get there? What does the immediate future hold? I think that there is far less clarity than a lot of us would like to see. However, I do not wish to leave you on a pessimistic note, so another thing that I have noticed is also a lot of hope, a lot of good intentions, and I've seen, or rather I've heard, that this hope is usually related or tied to regional cooperation. And I do not mean only to the regional cooperation within the Balkans, but also between the Balkans and other parts of the world. And I think that so much more is the initiative of the organizers to provide a venue, indeed to provide a forum, where modalities of these cooperations could be discussed, is even more important. So thank you, Sonia, Maya, and Sonia. Because the bottom line is, commonalities, just like differences, are created, they're made, they're not just out there. So these kinds of events provide a venue where people can discuss what these commonalities and differences are, and even more importantly, they can try to, for a change, define what the issues are. So not only respond to different issues, but also help put them on the agenda and discuss what different solutions may be. Because at the end of the day, Balkans are neither completely identical to, nor completely different from the rest of the world. And this forum, I hope, was, is, and will continue to be a place where we can discuss where exactly between these two extremes, or rather between these two opposites the Balkans currently are. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I think now you understood why I thought these two young people will give a much better evaluation than I could. I must say I'm very thankful to our colleague Philip Eidus for putting together the academic pre-event, and obviously that type of input is something which we will try to continue in the future. I was really thinking that I'm not going to say a word of my own evaluation, but then I was simply provoked. Professor Jim Seroka said, this forum was one step in the good direction. And the only thing I can say is to subscribe to this sentence. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I couldn't invent it better or shorter. And if it is really going to turn out to be true, I'm sure it will be for all of us, the three partner organizations, Belgrade Center for Security Policies, European Movement in Serbia, and the Belgrade Fund for Political Excellence, be the most important satisfaction. Of course, we are very well aware that it was not planned that way. It happened that way. That this forum is happening under a very, very serious shadow. And this shadow, we all hope, and this is what I think everybody tried to send as a clear message, will be resolved in a peaceful way, in a way which has in mind the future of each of our countries, the region, and the European family. Now, to go back to another family for a moment. And this is the family of those who are responsible for this event. I thanked already our partner organizations. It was a real teamwork. We proved that it is possible in this part of the world to build genuine partnerships. I thank you for that. Then I would like to thank people without whom this simply would not be possible. We all worked hard, but there are some who worked harder, who put their heart and soul in this event to be successful. And I will name them one by one. Maja Bieloš from the Belgrade Center for Security Policies. Svetlana Stefanovic and Ivana Ponjevic from the European Movement in Serbia. Nebojša Miljanović, Biljana Dakić, and Nenad Bosivčić from Belgrade Fund for Political Excellence. And now I must say a very special thanks to these wonderful young people that are standing there behind you, young men and women, our volunteers, who were the most welcome support to this event. And at the end, you, dear speakers and moderators, and our guests, you really made us to feel honored and privileged that you were together with us in this first important exercise that made our dreams become a reality. Thank you very much for being with us.
I believe that that is the end, but I think it would be improper if we didn't finish this without a proper thanks to Mrs. Licht, of course. So thank you very much for everything.